Hello everyone, Alex is here. Sony released the most weighted camera 9 months ago, the Sony A7IV. And you have no idea how much I waited for it. I had the Sony A7 II and I was thinking all the time between changing to the A7 III or keep waiting for the A7 IV. Eventually, I got lucky to get the A7 IV after 1 month since the pre-order. And I'm really happy I was patient, because this camera is a beast by all means. I've been using it for 8 months now, and here are 10 reasons why you should upgrade to the Sony A7 IV or consider buying it over the other brands. Video edition. And of course I will start with 4K 30fps oversampled from 7K and 60fps from 4.6K. Look, if you are someone like me, and of course you are, otherwise you won't be looking for a hybrid camera, you mostly are concerned about the crop on 60fps. So please don't be. Sony has to upgrade the megapixel to 33 for marketing reasons, and in order to keep a reasonable price, they has to go with Super 35. And honestly, I'm glad they did. You might disagree with me, which is totally fine, but the Super 35 recording helps me focus closer to the subject instead of cropping in post and losing quality. And it's oversampled from 4.6K, so the video quality is amazing. And moving to the reason number 2, 10 bits 422 recording. This is a feature that I didn't expect to see on the Sony A7 IV, and it can take your video quality to the next level, especially if you shoot S-Log3. So no more green or magenta tints on the skin when color grading, unlike the 8-bit color recording, although it will require you to use V90 or CF Express memory cards. And the reason number 3 is focus mapping. The A7 IV is the first camera from Sony that has this feature, and I think they should include it on the S3 and Alpha 1 on a firmware update, while the blue color is behind the focus point and the orange on the front, while keeping what's in focus untouched. And I found this feature very helpful and easier to use than focus peaking, especially if you shoot B-roll or product videos in general. And number 4 is focus transition. It's a feature we saw on the Sony S lineup, while you can slow the focus transition between two subjects to make it more pleasant to the eyes, instead of being instant. And there are 7 steps to work with here. So if you are shooting a cinematic clip and you want the transition to move between two elements and you don't want to use the manual focus, this feature will come in handy. And the reason number 5 is focus assist. This is also a new feature for Sony users, while you can use manual focus and autofocus at the same time. The autofocus will be working all the time until you move the focus ring, and here where you can take the control manually. And when you have clicked the shutter button or touch the screen, it will trigger the autofocus again. And the reason number 6 is 2 base ISOs. The first one at 800, which is the standard to shoot S-Log3, and the other one will kick at 3200 instead of 12800 on the S3, giving a better noise reduction on the range between 3200 and 6400. And most people will avoid going further, but when you are shooting in a really dark environment, the S3 is unbeatable. But that's expected on a camera made for videos in the first place. And the reason number 7 is the autofocus. This camera has the high-end Alpha 1 autofocus system. So we have here eye autofocus for human, animals, birds, on both photos and videos. That works perfectly. I did around 20 photo shoots till now, and guess how many photos went out of focus? 0. And I try to confuse the camera sometimes with 2 people in the frame, but it always picks the person that I want. So bottom line, the autofocus itself is more than enough to buy or upgrade to this camera. And the reason number 8 is photo and video dial. This is not specifically a video feature, but video users struggle with it the most. So now you can have different settings for photos and videos. All you have to do is to toggle the dial, and just like that you're back to the video settings you left. And videographers struggles usually because when you shoot photos of people, you put the shutter speed around 250 of the second to have clear image, while in video it's a different story. So let's say you're shooting 60 fps. With that you have to double the shutter speed, and accordingly you'll have to change the aperture and the ISO. And now you decided to take some photos again. You have to build your settings from the scratch. With this dial, you don't have to go through all over this ever again. And the reason number 9 is the flip screen. It's one of the most wanted feature on the Sony A7 IV, and it's finally here. Even though it's not the best, but it's fine enough to monitor yourself. So now you can do vlogging or YouTube videos without any hassle of buying an external expensive monitor. And as a YouTuber, it's a lifesaver. Even though it's a small screen, but still more than enough to set your composition right. And it was enough for me shooting YouTube using the Zeiss 55mm. And the reason number 10 is S-Cinetone. It's the popular Sony profile that used in Sony cinema cameras. On this profile, the color tone is so smooth and natural. However, with that, of course, the colors will be muted. So consider that if you're recording using this profile. But you can always add some color grading in post, because having the right skin tone is not always the wanted results, especially if you shoot cinematic videos. I'll give you now 2 bonus pros of this camera. So number 11 is streaming via USB. So if you own this camera, all you have to do is connect it via USB-C, and just like that you can turn your crappy webcam to a professional 1080p streaming. Look at the day and night difference between both on the same lighting conditions. Last but not least, and reason number 12, is full HDMI port. So no more of the terrible mini HDMI that keeps disconnecting every time you move your hand, or losing the eye and face detection when you connect to external monitor. But that will also drive us to the first con on this camera, or actually all Sony cameras. The screen will turn off when you connect the camera via HDMI to an external monitor. I don't know why this is still a problem on Sony cameras, because it's really annoying to lose all the camera screen features such as touch to focus, or if you're trying to show a client the live results on external monitor. Unless if you use an external recorder like the Atomos Ninja 5. You can keep both screens only if you're recording externally on the Ninja 5 or simultaneously on both. But if you want to use the Ninja 5 only as a monitor with all the data on it while the camera screen is on, that's not an option on this camera. And the second con is overheating. The A7 IV does overheat on some circumstances. It's really rare but possible. When you shoot over an hour on 4K 422 60 fps on a hot environment, which is more than enough for most people, but it will make you wonder if you can rely on this camera on long projects, such as interviews. Out of the box, this camera will warn you after around 30 minutes of recording, so here are some tips to avoid that. Open the camera screen while recording. Set the temperature on the settings at high. With that, you should not worry much about it. And the last reason why I don't like this camera is the rolling shutter. It's bad on this camera. Better than the previous generation, but uncomparable to the S3. So when you move the camera, you will start to see tearing on the image, giving unsmooth footage. Especially if you shoot sport primarily, you might need to consider the A7 S3. With all of that, you should remember that this is a hybrid camera. So it's not gonna be perfect for videos, and there is no such a thing as a perfect camera. There will always be some downsides, but if you're a hybrid shooter like me, this camera is the best option you can have, and I recommend it 100%. Anyway, don't forget to subscribe and ring the notification bell to be the first to watch the part 2 stills version of this video, and see you guys next time.